I didn't recognize myself that year. Everything felt heavier than it should have. Mornings were harder. Smiling took effort. I was tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. Life had hit me quietly but repeatedly. Loss, stress, things I didn't talk about because I didn't even know how to explain them. But I stayed. I still showed up. I still tried. And I trusted him to understand the version of me that wasn't okay. He used to say, "I'm here. We'll get through this." I believed that meant something. We weren't perfect, but we were steady. Or at least, that's what I thought. I didn't notice the distance at first. I blamed myself for it. I told myself I was too quiet, too withdrawn, too much work to love right now. So, I tried harder. I apologized for being sad, for being tired, for not being who I used to be. I didn't know then that while I was fighting to stay afloat, he was looking elsewhere. The first sign wasn't obvious. It was a shift. He stopped asking how I was really doing. Stopped sitting with me when I went quiet. Stopped noticing when I needed comfort. Instead, he became busy. Always busy. And I told myself this was normal. People pull away when things get hard. What I didn't know was that he wasn't pulling away from everyone. Just from me. The truth didn't come as a confession. It came accidentally. A message that wasn't meant for me to see. A name I didn't recognize. A tone I hadn't heard in months. My chest tightened, but I still defended him in my head. There has to be an explanation. There always is. Until there isn't. When I finally asked him, my voice didn't shake. I wasn't angry yet. I just asked, "Who is she?" He didn't deny it. He sighed. And that sigh hurt more than the truth that followed. After that sigh, he didn't rush to explain. He sat there quietly, like he was deciding how honest he could afford to be. "I didn't want it to happen," he said. "I was just lonely." That word hit me harder than I expected. Lonely. I thought about the nights I cried in the bathroom, so he wouldn't hear me. In the mornings, I forced myself out of bed so life wouldn't fall apart completely. The way I still showed up, even when I felt empty. And he was lonely. He told me I had changed. That I wasn't present anymore. That I was always tired. That I wasn't the woman he fell in love with. He said it gently, like he was being careful with my feelings. But every word felt like blame dressed up as honesty. I needed someone who could be there for me, he said. Someone who could listen. I almost laughed, because all I had been doing that year was surviving. I asked him why he didn't talk to me. Why didn't he tell me he was struggling too? He looked uncomfortable. "I didn't think you could handle it," he said. "You already had so much going on." So instead of communicating, he cheated. He said it wasn't serious. That it didn't mean anything. It was just someone who made him feel better for a moment. A moment. While I was drowning, he was looking for relief. He told me he didn't mean to hurt me. That he didn't plan for it to go that far. And then he said something I will never forget. "You have to understand, that year was hard for me, too." That's when it became clear. My pain was something he endured. His pain was something that excused him. I sat there quietly, listening to him explain his betrayal like it was a side effect of my sadness. Like cheating was something that happened to him, not something he chose. I realized then that he wasn't apologizing. He was explaining why it made sense. And somehow, I was the problem in every version of the story. That was the moment I stopped asking questions. Because the answers weren't about truth. They were about justification. After that conversation, I didn't feel angry. I felt small. Like everything I had been carrying that year had somehow become evidence against me. I replayed his words over and over. "You changed. You weren't there. I was lonely too." I wondered if maybe he was right. Maybe my sadness had made me unlovable. Maybe my silence had pushed him away. Maybe surviving had cost me the right to be chosen. That thought stayed with me longer than the betrayal itself. But slowly, something started to feel wrong about it. I thought about how many times I had asked him if he was okay. How many times have I checked in, even when I barely had the strength to check in with myself? I remembered the nights he brushed past my pain like it was an inconvenience. The times he changed the subject when things got uncomfortable. He didn't try to reach me. He waited for me to disappear. And when I didn't, he found someone who didn't need anything from him. That's when it became clear. He didn't cheat because I was struggling. He cheated because it was easier than staying present. Because being with someone in pain requires patience. And he wanted relief. Blaming me made it simpler. If my sadness caused it, then his choices didn't have to be examined. He could stay the good guy in his own story. I realized then that if I accepted his explanation, I would spend the rest of my life apologizing for things I never did. For being human. For being tired. For needing support. That night, I lay awake thinking about all the ways women are taught to carry guilt that isn't theirs. How quickly we turn inward. How easily we accept blame. I understood something important. If he could cheat when I was at my lowest, and still believe he was justified, then this wasn't about a bad year. It was about who he chose to be when things weren't easy. And that truth changed everything. After that realization, I stopped arguing with myself. I stopped replaying his excuses, trying to make them fit into something I could accept. Because the truth was simple. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't step outside the relationship when things got hard. He did. Once I saw that clearly, something lifted. Not the pain, but the confusion. He kept talking like we were still working through a misunderstanding. Like time and patience would smooth everything out. He told me I needed to heal. Once I felt better, things could go back to normal. Normal, as if what happened was a pause, not a fracture. I realized then that he wasn't waiting for me to recover. He was waiting for me to forget, for the weight of the year to fade, for my sadness to become something distant enough to dismiss, for the cheating to turn into something we got through. I didn't confront him again. I didn't need to. Every time he spoke, he revealed more than he intended. He talked about his needs, his loneliness, his frustration. He never asked how it felt to be betrayed while already broken. That silence told me everything. I understood then that if I stayed, I would always be expected to heal quietly, to recover without making him uncomfortable, to forgive without accountability. And I knew myself well enough to know this. I could survive a hard year, but I could not survive being blamed for someone else's choices. That night, I made a decision. Not out loud. Not dramatically. Just honestly. I would stop shrinking myself to protect him. I thought the decision would feel heavier. Like something dramatic would happen to push me out the door. But it didn't. It arrived quietly, the same way truth often does. When there's nothing left to argue with. I watched him move around like things were settling. Like we were getting through it. He spoke about the future again. Plans. Small jokes. I realized something uncomfortable. He thought I was still negotiating. Still deciding whether his explanation was enough. But I wasn't. I had already understood what staying would cost me. It would mean carrying responsibility that wasn't mine. It would mean learning to silence pain so he could stay comfortable. It would mean apologizing for being human. I couldn't do that anymore. One evening, I told him I needed space. He looked surprised. Why? He asked. I thought we were past this. That's when I knew how differently we saw it. To him, the cheating was something we talked through. To me, it was something that changed everything. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain myself again. I had explained enough. I need to take care of myself, I said. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He just looked confused, like he never believed I would actually choose myself. And that was the moment it became clear. He wasn't shocked that I was leaving. He was shocked that I wasn't willing to carry his guilt anymore. Walking away didn't feel empowering right away. It felt lonely, uncertain, quiet, but it also felt honest. And after a year of surviving things I never asked for, honesty mattered more than comfort. Leaving didn't fix everything. It didn't suddenly make me strong or confident or whole. What it did was stop the bleeding. The days after were slow, quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. I was still sad, still tired. But I wasn't carrying someone else's excuses anymore. I thought a lot about that year, about how easily my pain became something he used against me. How quickly my silence turned into proof that I wasn't enough. I realized something important. If someone can cheat while you're at your lowest and still believe they're justified, then they were never prepared to love you when things weren't easy. He didn't cheat because I was broken. He cheated because he didn't want to stay present in discomfort, because it was easier to find relief elsewhere than to sit with someone who needed patience. That truth hurt, but it also freed me. I stopped asking what I could have done differently. I stopped wondering if I was too much or not enough. I was simply human. Healing didn't come all at once. Some days I felt lighter. Other days I felt everything again. But I noticed something changing. I slept without anxiety. I breathed without guilt. I stopped apologizing for existing. And slowly I trusted myself again. I don't hate him. I don't need to. What I lost wasn't someone who stood beside me when life got hard. What I lost was someone who needed me to be okay. So he wouldn't have to be accountable. Love didn't fail because I struggled. It failed because he chose himself. When I needed a partnership, and walking away wasn't me giving up. It was me refusing to disappear.